Check 1, 2, ABC. Oh, that's not great. There it goes. Okay. Thought we lost it. You know, it's like he did just went black, and I was like, oh, great. Love that. All right, some folks are coming down the hallway. I about said good morning. I am tired. Yeah. Good evening. Good evening. Come on in. I went to Arby's yesterday. What's your meal at Arby's? What would you get? Is this a senior deal? Can I get this same deal? Are you sure? Okay. Do they have like a senior discount at Arby's? Ah, depends on who owns the franchise. If you're some of the handouts out there from the past 2 weeks. So if you missed any of the past 2 weeks, feel free to grab the handouts. There's nothing new tonight. All right. Good evening. I'll let folks get settled and we'll get going. It's good to be with you all. Good? Is everyone else tired too? Yeah. It's like everyone stayed up and watched a football game and we're still just recovering, right? Man. I know. Right? Was that the IU game? See, we've all lost track of time. I don't know, 1-ish, maybe midnight-ish. Mercy. Yeah.
It was when the game was over. Tell them we're not.
Yeah, we watched the presentation, like the trophy and all that jazz, and then it was like, man, tomorrow's gonna get here really fast, and so yeah. No, that's fun. You have to show me after we're done. I would love to see it. I have a buddy who went down. He's spoiled. His mom took him down to the game, so I got like live updates. He sent me videos, and I was like, "You're a punk." Yeah. He was right behind Miami's bench. Like, I mean, he had good seats. Anyways, that has nothing to do with tonight.
That quarterback was at one of the Dick's stores
Really?
signing autographs.
Oh, yeah.
This afternoon. This evening.
Missed opportunity. Yeah, I would imagine. All right, we are going to keep pushing through here, and we'll be in Judges. We're on session 2. We have 2 more sessions scheduled with kind of 2 other flex sessions on February 11th and the 18th. I'm realizing that February 4th might be a challenge for me, which is why we have that flex schedule, but I'll keep you posted.
Might be a challenge for me too.
Okay. Where are you going to be?
My granddaughter has a birthday, and by gosh, if we don't be there for her birthday, the world might end.
That would be terrible.
This is the one with the grandkids.
Yeah.
Came to church with you.
So I'll keep you all posted on that, just so we're on the same page. So we've talked about when deliverance is dramatic, and we talked about all these judges and like Ehud and the left-handed guy and the sword and the assassination of the king. We talked about Samson and the Philistines and the foxes and the come on, you're good. And all sorts of wild stories about Delilah and the hare and the loom and all those things. So those are like the big. You're fine. Those are the big stories of Judges. And then what we'll talk about tonight is when leadership is costly. And what I want to do is I have a few slides to discuss, but nothing crazy. I got some notes. But we will actually read this story so that we can say we read some of the Bible. It would be good for a Bible study. I think that this story in particular is a challenge to read. Maybe you're a better reader than me, but I think I've read it 3 times today, and I'm still not sure that I know what's happening in the story.
Oh, good.
Right?
I'm glad.
Yeah, but maybe you're a better reader. And I think I run into this problem with the Bible sometimes, where you get to like the names, and you're like, Tim of Steve and Sally went to, Costco, and at Costco, then they bought 12 things, and you're like, why does the grocery list matter? But they're going to tell you. 4 cubits of toilet paper and 6 ephahs of flour. And you're like, oh my goodness. But such is the passage sometime. I think the challenge for us is to kind of pull up from the details, right? So to kind of pull up from the details and to say, what is this story kind of really getting at? And is there a moral tale? Is there a historical tale? Is there a lesson we're supposed to learn? Is there history we're supposed to learn? Is there beautiful poetry or literature that we should appreciate? What is it supposed to do? What's its significance? So we will encounter that, maybe. I hope so. Sound good? Okay. I'm going to offer a word of prayer. We will figure out where we're at, and we'll hop in. So let's pray for a moment. Holy God, in the midst of my own tiredness, in the midst of other people's tiredness, that you meet us where we are. That's sort of profound, that you meet us when we are at our best, and you meet us when we're at our worst, and you meet us in between. And so, Lord, we pray that you be with us here in this space. Be with folks who are watching online as we encounter you in this text tonight, that we would be changed. We pray this all in your Son's name. Amen. All right. So,
He's always at his best.
isn't it? We're going to encounter some of that tonight in our text, I think. We'll see. So let's remind ourselves where we are. Our story takes place in Israel, although it's not really called Israel when we encounter our story, right? Nod your head. That nation did not exist in the way that we think it exists. It takes place in the land of Israel, or the Hebrew people, and really it's the land of Canaan, the Levant, the land between. It's this land bridge between Africa, Asia, and Europe, and there are a number of tribes who are there that we could broadly say are the Canaanites. But that's not even really true, as we've discovered. There's multiple tribes within that classification of Canaanites. And that's when you get those lists. Yeah. And let's see if I can find them in my notes. Maybe you'll find them faster than me, but I probably will. It's the Perizzites and the Jebusites and the other ites, all the ites. All the ites are there. And they inhabit this area. And then the tribes have been given these different, sections of land. And we will recall that those tribes are the 12 kiddos of Israel, or Judah. And so there they are in this space. Doing okay? Did I miss anything? All right. So, one of the main themes of the book of Judges is the cost, I think, both morally and physically, of their leadership. It's, we would like to think that if you have a good leader, good things will happen. And we would like to think that if you have a bad leader, that equals bad things will happen. And I just think that's not our lived experience. Sometimes you have a bad leader, and good things happen. And sometimes you have a great leader, and bad things happen. And sometimes you have a good leader, and good things happen. And sometimes you have a bad leader, and bad things happen. And you're like, what is the connection between someone's leadership capability or their moral closeness to God and the outcome of their actions? Sometimes there appears to be a correlation or a connection. And I think sometimes that connection is not as clear. It's just something I think that kind of keeps us up. So I'm going to move ahead for a moment. I'm going to come back to that. Okay. But what I want us to read is this second section. Tonight we're going to cover Judges 4 through 5. And that's really the story of Deborah, which we've already encountered last week. So if you missed that, I would encourage you to read it again. It's a great story about a lady judge. There are 3 women mentioned in the book of Judges, which I wanted to name. One was Deborah, the other was Jael, and the other was Delilah. Those are the 3 that are mentioned explicitly. There are other women who are mentioned in the book of Judges. Nod your head, right? But they have like peripheral roles. They're like the mother figure or a daughter. We will encounter some of those figures in our story tonight. But these three women, Deborah, Jael, and Delilah, have significant roles, right? Delilah serves as sort of the sultry seductress over Samson, you know? And Deborah is the wise, God-fearing judge who, you know, who's a strong woman, a strong leader. And the author of Judges doesn't even blink that this woman is doing what she's supposed to be doing. She's a boss woman and she's taking names. Jael is a strong woman who literally murders the opposing general. You know, the idea that a man would die at the hands of a woman, such disgrace, right? But she's showing, you know, there's victory over the infidel in this story. You could think of it that way. And I think it's just important to recognize Judges in its historical context. That I'm going to speak carefully and make sure I understand myself. Women having such a prominent role and a positive role in antiquity is rather rare. When most women are depicted in antiquity in literature, they're usually the seductress, right? They're usually, it's right, or a servant, a subservient role like a queen or a consort. But to find these women who have, well, I don't know, a personality, right? Who have their own hopes and dreams and desires, who are just as prominent in the text as the male figures, I think is a rather unique thing. And it's something that we should remember and not just gloss over, although I don't have any other further notes because I want to move on with our story and we have plenty of other things to talk about. But I wanted to give that some airspace. So, any thoughts on that before we move on? Just the thought of, you know, half the room is women, you know, on the role of women in antiquity. What do you think?
Are there any other books where there are women that play prominent roles in the Old Testament? Really?
Yes. Two in particular, and we've studied them. Ruth and Esther. You know, and we could be honest that that's sort of where the list ends, right? There are women who play prominent roles throughout the Old Testament. The list is probably not as long as the men. And that always raises interesting textual questions from a Bible study perspective. Why is that? Okay, so that's a very common critique, right? We could say, well, the patriarchy has, you know, those who create history, right, or those who shape history, have the power to sort of create it however they want. And so men predominantly have had the pen to author these stories. And so they're going to put themselves in more prominent roles. How else do you make of this? Okay, I think you're onto something, right? We need to understand the Bible in its context and the Bible in its cultural trappings.
Women were owned. They didn't own themselves.
Yeah.
They were owned.
Property, chattel, right? There are some rare instances where women are landowners, like, what's her name? Is it Priscilla in the New Testament? Nope, that's not right. It'll come back to me. There's a woman who is with purple cloth.
Oh, Dorcas.
Dorcas?
Yeah, Dorcas and Tabitha.
Maybe.
Wasn't she the one with the purple cloth?
I can't remember now. And now you said it right. But there are examples in the Bible of women who have more prominence than just being property. But you're right. I think these are important cultural considerations. Because go ahead.
So when did women get the right to vote?
In this country,
That's only been 100 years ago.
right, right.
Up until that, women didn't have property exactly. They had no say. You know, they didn't vote.
It wasn't until 1975, I think it was, that women could,
I'm walking closer so people online can hear this.
without a male signature. 1970, I was on my own and couldn't
Okay, so if that was the case in 1975 or in 1920, now read the book of Judges through that lens, right? And you go, wow, that's rather countercultural. Of course, I think, my opinion, is I'll have conversations with people online sometimes, or even in person, and they'll say, this book is so backwards, right? It's all superstition, it's full of nonsense. How can you believe these fairy tales? It's full of horrific things like sanctioned killing and the oppression of women and the oppression of the LGBTQ community, and they go down the list, you know what I mean? And I go, have you actually read the thing? You know what I mean? Like if you actually read it and you kind of pull back and you understand it in its context and what it says, there are parts that are like, dang, that's crazy. You know what I mean? Even the idea, let's fast forward to the New Testament, and I'm off my notes, but I'm getting there. If you fast forward to the New Testament, even the idea that like an Ethiopian eunuch can somehow be a part of the church is crazy. Like no, you don't allow it. The fact that like all food is permissible, right? Peter has the vision about the tent coming down and this is go and eat. It's all fine. That's crazy. We would say, of course that's okay, but in that culture, that's crazy. So there are these moments in the text when you consider it within its cultural context, where you read the story in Judges about these women and you go, that's crazy. My opinion.
Well, and that was totally radical. Well, still, when Jesus appeared to the women and not the men.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, they don't, women don't count for anything. Don't believe what they say. It's only a guy that can do this. So that, way back then, completely radical.
Yes.
You have women's names mentioned.
That's right. Entirely countercultural, scandalous. Even.
Paul's letters always mention women.
Yes. Women are included. Anyways, okay. Just something to think about. Okay. So let's run with this theme, and I want to just read now. We're gonna set the ladies aside. We've done our due diligence there as best we can. We'll move to chapter 10, verse 6. If you're watching online, I want to encourage you to grab a Bible or open a new tab. Go to BibleGateway.com or whatever, and we'll be in Judges 10, verse 6. I'm going to read. That way folks online can listen. Sound good? And I'll be reading out of the NRSV. Excuse me. I'll try not to cough. And then we're going to read through 12:7. I might stop every now and then just to think out loud with you all. If you have questions, I would encourage you to capture those. Let me see if I can do like 15,000 feet on the story. This story is going to be about a judge, maybe a couple, and there's going to be some weird things that happen. There's a lot of names, but some things to consider while you're reading might be, what's the role of God in the text? Bless you. What's the role of God in the text? What's the role of the leader in the text? And what's the role of like others in the text, or the people on the side? Who is collateral damage, or things to consider? I realized I left my discussion questions on the printer. It's fine, I don't need them. Oh, I'm doing it live. Okay, here we go. 10:6. The Israelites again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. Pause. The Israelites did again what was evil in the sight of the Lord. There's that phrase that we've seen again and again and again in Judges. Every time sort of each judge begins, or the section of Judges begins, it begins with that phrase. They do what's evil in the sight of the Lord. Worshipping the Baals and the Astartes, the gods of Aram, the gods of Sidon, the gods of Moab, and the gods of the Ammonites, and the gods of the Philistines. Did your eyes glaze over? Are you with me? Okay, right? Yeah. Okay, so I'm a nerd, right? And I'm like, what are those names and what are those things? So very briefly, let me see if I can do this for you. The Astartes
Anything ending in heights is the bad people.
is a person, but the Astartes is not a people group. It's a god, and it's a woman, and is probably a consort of Baal. And we will remember that Baal means God or Lord and it's also a personal deity. So it's a title, but it's also a pagan god, and it's a fertility god. And Astartes is also probably a fertility god. The gods of Aram is the god of Syria. So Aram and Syria are the same thing. I know, right? I know. But that's just what it is. The same thing. And the gods of Aram were probably like Hadad. He's the storm god. He's like Baal. He's exactly like Baal. So whether he is Baal and they just call him something different, because they're in a different place and a different people, who knows? Who knows? Don't know. And the gods of Sidon and the gods of Moab, those are two different places, and those gods are often conflated with Syria, but they're different gods. And the gods of the Ammonites and the gods of the Philistines, we've talked about them a little bit, and I love this. This is fascinating. Thus they abandoned the Lord and did not worship him. I'm sure none of us have ever done that. Okay?
We've all sinned.
Yes. So the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of the Philistines and into the hand of the Ammonites, and they crushed and opposed the Israelites that year. For 18 years they oppressed all the Israelites that were beyond the Jordan in the land of the Amorites, which is in Gilead. The Ammonites also crossed the Jordan to fight against Judah. Remember, the Jordan is a demarcation line. It's a river. It's a physical barrier between the promised land and the wilderness, or the other land over there. Also happens to be where Jesus was baptized. So the Jordan to fight against Judah and against Benjamin. Those are two tribes of Israel, right? And against the house of Ephraim, so that Israel was greatly distressed. Verse 10 is what I have up here on the screen. So the Israelites cried to the Lord, saying, we have sinned against you because we have abandoned our God and have worshipped the Baals. Now you'll notice that the word God there in verse 10 is not the capital L-O-R-D, right? When you see the capital L-O-R-D in your text, like in verse 11, right, and the Lord right here, in my Bible, it's all the capital L-O-R-D. You have that as well? Yeah, that's the proper name of God when you see that in the Old Testament and the New Testament, just as a reminder. So that's Yahweh. That's the Tetragrammaton, the YHWH. That's God's proper name. When you would read that, you wouldn't actually say Yahweh. You would say Adonai. And Adonai means Lord. So that's where we get that word. Doing okay? All right, so let's look at it again. Verse 10, so the Israelites cried to the Lord, God's proper name, saying, we have sinned against you because we have abandoned our God, not proper name, and have worshipped the Baals. And the Lord, proper name, said to the Israelites, did I not deliver you from the Egyptians? Right, you remember that story? Moses, plagues. Did I not deliver you from the Egyptians, and from the Amorites, and from the Ammonites, and from the Philistines, the Sidonians also, and the Amalekites, and the Maonites? They oppressed you, and you cried to me, and I delivered you out of their hand. Pause. Let's remember that some of that deliverance has happened already in the book of Judges. So we are 10 chapters in. It is probable that these are not sequential stories. Okay, I'm going to consult my notes. If you consider the dates in the book of Judges so far, if you took the dates and you kind of put them all together, they would be sequentially about 400 years. So King Saul, right, the first king of Israel, anointed by Samuel, becomes king in 1025. Okay? So that means from the time of coming out of Egypt to Judges, that's how people will date this thing and say, that means 400 years, that means, in the 1600s, that's when they came out of Egypt. But, okay. But, the story of the Judges is probably not sequential, as it's told in the book, right? We have to write a story sequentially. But what we're really missing in the text, probably, is the word meanwhile. Meanwhile. And here's why. There's intertribal fighting amongst the judges. And if this is getting confusing, I'm just trying to be particular. Right? There's intertribal fighting amongst the Israelites. Brothers and sisters not getting along. Imagine that. right? And then there's inter-ethnic fighting, Canaanites and Israelites going to battle. And then God raises up judges in different tribes. We'll go back in our little thingy here. So some of the judges come from here. Some of the judges come from here. Some of the judges come, in fact, all the judges come from different areas except for 2 who are Gideonites, and that's the story we're learning about tonight. All the others come from different tribes. So it's quite possible that judges ruled at the same time in different spaces, and they probably overlapped their rule.
Yeah, so the stories are told in order, but they might be overlapping.
Correct. Yes.
I never thought of that.
Okay. Now, could they be sequential? Sure. Does it like rock my faith if I die and God says, Josh, they were sequential? I'm going to go, that makes sense, right? And does it rock my faith if I die and God says, look, they overlap? I'm going to go, that makes sense, right? But just so we're aware of sort of the time, the history, and the date of these things. So this story, right? Did I not deliver you from the Egyptians and from the Amorites, from the Ammonites, and from the Philistines, the Sidonians, and also the Amalekites and the Maonites? Mayonnaise. All right. They oppressed you, and you cried to me, and I delivered you out of their hand. Yet you abandoned me and worshipped other gods. Therefore, I will deliver you no more. Verse 14. Are you ready? Go and cry to the gods whom you've chosen. Let them deliver you in the time of your distress. It's like you made your bed. Yeah, you can go lie in it. And the Israelites said to the Lord, proper name, we have sinned. Do to us whatever seems good to you, but deliver us this day. Verse 16, so they put away the foreign gods from among them and worshiped the Lord, proper name, and he could no longer bear to see Israel suffer. I'm going to pause for a moment. Right? We're going to go into verse 17 after this, and I don't have a slide for that. We're going to keep reading the story. But there is great debate in the Christian faith and tradition about something called the, are you ready? We're going to go a little deeper here. So we're going to go, ready? Here we go together. We're going to hold hands. We're going to go together. Something called the immutability of God. Can God be changed? Or can God be coerced? Or can God be sad? There are multiple schools of thought. Let me lay this out for you, right? There's the traditional school of thought is that God is immutable or unchangeable. And God has to be, this is God's nature. That, okay, you've seen that old Simpsons, right? It says like, can God create a burrito so hot even God can't eat it? You know? Or a donut so big even God couldn't eat it. This is the same question, right? Is like, what are the limits of God? And so the traditional classical response about God is that God is entirely other, right? God is over there. I'm not saying God is distant. I'm just saying God is not impacted by what God created. Because if God was impacted by what God created, then God is not sovereign over God's creation. Now, as a parent, I say that's a bunch of baloney, right? There's a sovereign in the house, right? That would be me and my wife, but we are still impacted by what we've created, okay? Now, that's the traditional understanding. Then there's another understanding, a more, what people would say, a progressive understanding of God, is that, yes, God is moved. So even on the cross, right, God knows what it's like to lose a child. Now, the classical definition would say God could never understand that because God cannot be moved by such things. But the more deeply personal understanding of God would say God is impacted by human suffering and loss. So you see that in the New Testament, I think, a lot. Yeah, Jesus weeps, right? And we see it in the person of Christ, who we would say is God incarnate. You tracking with where some of these overlap? And people will say often in the Old Testament, oh, God's a jerk. You know, he's out there murdering everybody. He doesn't seem to care. Where's the verse in the Old Testament that says that Jesus, that God weeps? Well, this is interesting.
About as close as it gets.
Yes, this is interesting, right? And God could no longer bear to see Israel suffer. So how do you interpret this? Is this the author imposing sort of a human emotion on the divine? Or is this the divine actually having empathy and being impacted by the suffering that the divine is witnessing? And I'm just going to step back and let you think of it.
You know, you look back, Sarah wanted a baby. Abraham and Sarah wanted a baby. And God had always promised him a baby. And even though it didn't come for a long time, he saw how they suffered for that. And out in the desert, they were thirsty, they were hungry.
The Israelites, as they're wandering, and God provides for them.
Provides for them. Sometimes he over-provides because they made him mad. He sends them 3 feet worth of dead birds.
All sorts of things. So, others, what do you think?
Well, he's also depicted as being angry at times too, so either that's a projection of human emotion on him,
Or he's angry.
or maybe he really does that. Maybe he really does have emotion.
This is beautiful. I think this is a good discussion.
But going back to Adam and Eve, when Adam and Eve ate the apple, God was upset, but I'm sure he was also sad. You know, I did this, I thought I was doing the right thing, and what do they do?
Done messed it up.
I let him mess it up. And I can't believe God did not be sad, angry, of course. But, you know, here he had created what he thought was a perfect world, a perfect place. And what do they do?
Sure. Sure. How else do you read this? What do you think? Other thoughts?
Sometimes I wonder if it's just not us projecting onto God what our human understanding of things.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think,
When we can't understand why that happened, and then so he must have been angry, he must have been forgiving,
he must have been sad, or he must have been whatever. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I personally, as a trained theologian and pastor, have a very difficult time when people try to argue God's nature from an absolute perspective. To say things like, well, God, logically cannot be impacted by his, creation, because that would somehow change God's relationship to the created order of things. I just think I understand. Like the person who makes Legos can't be a Lego. Like, I get it. You know what I mean? But when it comes to like relationships and the squishiness of people, and I would argue the squishiness of God, there's a greater connection than often we give credit to. It's just my pastoral and theological perspective. So I read this and I say, I think God is sad. My opinion. Okay, we're going to keep moving on because the story gets... It's fine. Don't worry. We're gonna move on. We're going to do okay. We've got plenty of time. 17. Then the Ammonites were called to arms, right? So they're going to war. And they encamped in Gilead. And the Israelites came together and they encamped at Mizpah. Don't ask me where that's at. Doesn't matter. The commanders of the people of Gilead said to one another, who will begin the fight against the Ammonites, right? The other people. He shall be head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. Pause for a moment. Are you sure it's going to be a dude? Yeah, it actually will be a dude. Okay, 11:1. Now Jephthah, the Gileadite, the son of a prostitute, was a mighty warrior. Gilead was the father of Jephthah. Gilead's wife also bore him sons, and when his wife's sons grew up, they drove Jephthah away, saying to him, you shall not inherit anything in our father's house, for you are the son of another woman, right? You're half-brother. You're going to take our stuff. Get out of here. Then Jephthah fled from his brothers and lived in the land of Tob, which is the great name of a neighborhood, right? Now, and let's pause for a moment. There are themes that right? You read Genesis, and there's always themes of like the brother driving off the other brother. They sell brothers into slavery. There's jealousy, and here it is again. Outlaws, right? Brigands, thieves, Robin Hood. Outlaws collected around Jephthah and went raiding with him. This dude is like Robin Hood. After a time, the Ammonites made war against Israel, and when the Ammonites made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to bring Jephthah from the land of Tob. They said to Jephthah, "Come and be our commander, so that we may fight with the Ammonites." We got to go fight these people. But Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, "Are you not the very ones who rejected me and drove me out of my father's house? So why do you come to me now when you are in trouble?" Okay, do you hear also the literary parallel? Earlier in the story, God says, "Oh, you're crying out to me. You need help." Yeah, go beg the other gods that you pray to. The same parallel literally is happening here. Like, oh, you want my help now. You didn't want my help earlier, but now that you're in a bind, right? "Come be our commander," Jephthah said to the elders. "Are you not the very ones?" So you're going to do verse 8. So the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "Nevertheless, we have now turned back to you, so that you may go with us and fight with the Ammonites and become head over us, over all the inhabitants of Gilead." Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, "If you bring me home again to fight with the Ammonites, and the Lord gives them over to me, I'll be your head." And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "The Lord will be witness between us. We will surely do as you say." So Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and commander over them. And Jephthah spoke all his words before the Lord at Mizpah. We're going to keep going. Then Jephthah sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites and said, "What is there between you and me? And you have come to fight me, to fight against my land." The king of Ammonites answered the messengers of Jephthah, "Because Israel, on coming from Egypt, took away my land from the Arnon to the Jabbok," that's a river or a wadi, right, into the Jordan. "Now therefore restore it peaceably." Okay, so he's appealing to history here, right? "Israel took away my land." Once again, Jephthah sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites and said to him, "Thus says Jephthah, Israel did not take away the land of Moab or the land of the Ammonites, but when they came up from Egypt, Israel went through the wilderness to the Red Sea and came to Kadesh. Israel then sent messengers to the king of Edom, saying, 'Let us pass through your land.' But the king of Edom would not listen. They also sent the king to the king of Moab, but he would not consent. So Israel remained at Kadesh. Then they journeyed through the wilderness, went around the land of Edom and the land of Moab, arrived on the east side of the land of Moab." If you don't know the story, it's in the book of Joshua, right before this. "And camped on the other side of the Arnon. They did not enter the territory of Moab, for the Arnon was the boundary of Moab. Israel then sent messengers to King Sihon of the Amorites." If your eyes are glazing over, right? He's recounting the story. That's what he's doing. We did the thing. We went to these places. We talked to these people. Don't sit here and argue with me. All right, King of Heshbon and Israel said to him, "Let us pass through your land to our country." But Sihon did not trust Israel to pass through his territory. So Sihon gathered all his people together and encamped at Jahaz and fought with Israel. Then the Lord, the God of Israel, gave Sihon and all his people into the hand of Israel, and they defeated them. So Israel occupied all the land of the Amorites who inhabited that country. And he's going to go on, right? We're going to keep reading. Verse 22. "They occupied all the territory of the Amorites, from the Arnon to the Jabbok and the wilderness of the Jordan. So now the Lord, the God of Israel, has conquered the Amorites for the benefit of his people Israel. Do you intend to take their place? Should you not possess what your God Shamash gives you to possess? And should we not be the ones to possess everything that the Lord our God has conquered for our benefit?" This is a long speech, is it not? And here it is. This is the speech. "Now are you any better than King Balak, son of Zippor of Moab?" I know, right? It sounds like it's made up, right? "Did he ever enter into conflict with Israel, or did he ever go to war with them, while Israel lived in Heshbon and its villages, and Aroer and its villages, and in all the towns that are along the Arnon? 300 years. Why are you telling me how long? Why does it matter?" He's telling you. 300 years. "Why did you not recover them within that time? It is not I who have sinned against you, but you are the one who does me wrong by making war on me. But the Lord who is judge, let the Lord who is judge decide today for the Israelites or for the Ammonites." Right? So decide this day. Which one is it going to be? Ammonites or Israelites? But the king of the Ammonites did not heed the message that Jephthah sent him. So That's right. Yeah. Too many names and too many places. I have lost interest. If only he would take a class on brevity and rhetoric. All right. So he sends him this thing. He doesn't heed the words. So bad things are going to happen. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah, and he passed through Gilead and Manasseh. He passed on to Mizpah of Gilead, and from Mizpah of Gilead he passed on to the Ammonites. And Jephthah made a vow to the Lord and said, okay, I'm going to pause. I'm going to tell you about a story I had.
Okay.
When I was an undergrad, I took a class. What was it called? Doesn't matter. I forget. But I still have the maps in my office. And they are big maps. They are like this big. They fold out, right? And on it are all of the places in Israel. And you would read these passages, and you begin to track like where they're going. And I used to hear this, and I'd be like, it's so spiritual. God is guiding this army on this, holy war to claim the Holy Land, and because God delivered it. That's how I used to understand it. And then when you put it on a map, you go, oh, they had to go that way because there's mountains, 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 river. And so there's only one way to go. And then you see it, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's a tactical, strategic reason that all those places are named like they are. And so I just want us to be careful, right? When we hear these things, it's easy for our eyes to glaze over. It's easy for our ears to go shut. And for it to be like, that sounds like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or Harry Potter or whatever. But they're real places. You can go there. You can stick your hands in the soil. Things happened. And sometimes the reason why things happened the way they did is because that's how it had to happen for that army. There was no way for it to get from point A to point B but to go through the 16 towns they just named. Does that make sense? Kind of like in the far, far future, someone's going to be hearing about how the U.S. Army landed in this place called Normandy. And they're going to go, where's that? Right? And you're going to go, it's in France. And they're going to go, I've never heard of France. Yeah, they're long gone. Normandy's long gone, right? And then what happened to this U.S. Army? Why does it sound so funny to say that word? Why were they over there? How'd they get there? They got there on boats. Oh my gosh, boats. Why? There's an ocean. It's not mythological, like, does that make sense? It's not made up big grand scheme that's just how it is, because if you put it on a map, that's what it is. So we go back. And I know you can't see it, but like those cities, like when they go to the city, they go to the next city, and they go to the next city. And they, like, tracking with me? Because it's in a line, and there's a road. Oh, my goodness. There is a balm in Gilead, make the wounded whole. Gilead is right here by Gad. Gilead, Gad, right here. Right over here in this map, it's this yellow blob right here. Yeah, so you will notice it is to the east of the Jordan. Here's the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. This line right here. The what now?
The Mitzvah, which was mentioned, it's on the west of
Mizpah is where Jacob left his father-in-law.
You all are too good. I believe you. I can't find it on the map right now. So,
I don't think it was more than a day's travel.
It's near
His
Jerusalem.
father-in-law went after him and found him at Mizpah. They had the Mizpah benediction.
I believe you. I believe all of you. All right. So that's the places. We're going to keep moving on. Sound good? Where were we? Someone help me. 17? Oh, we were past that. Oh, I know. Yeah, we moved past this. This was God feeling. We'll go back to the maps. 28. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. The king of the Ammonites did not heed the message because it was too long. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah, and he passed through Gilead and Manasseh. He passed on the Mizpah of Gilead, and from Mizpah of Gilead he passed on to the Ammonites. And Jephthah made a vow to the Lord. All right, this is important. in ancient world, when you make a vow, when you say the words, it's done.
It's in blood.
It's done, right? So when Jacob goes into his father, who is failing eyesight, and he says, "Bless me," right? And his father, he thinks that he is Esau. You remember this story? And he says it. He's no takesy backsies, right? He said it, and it's like the words are like law. And so when Esau finds out that he's already given his blessing, his father says, "I cannot give it again." Okay? Because when you, in the ancient world, in the ancient mind, when you say the blessing, when you say the vow, it's covenant. Oh, it's going to get bad. I'm just telling you, it's going to get bad. Okay. Jephthah made a vow to the Lord and said, "If you will give the Ammonites into my hand, then whomever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me when I return victorious from the Ammonites shall be the Lord's, to be offered up by me as a burnt offering." Oh yeah, don't worry, it gets better, I promise. Verse 32. So Jephthah crossed over to the Ammonites to fight against them, and the Lord gave them into his hand. He inflicted a massive defeat on them from Aroer to the neighborhood of Minnith, 20 towns, and as far as Abel Keramim. So the Ammonites were subdued before the people of Israel. Then Jephthah came to his home at Mizpah, and there was his daughter coming out to meet him with timbrels. That's like a little tambourine. And with dancing. She was his only child. He had no son or daughter except her. When he saw her, he tore his clothes. Probably shouldn't have made that vow, dude. All right? He tears his clothes and said, "Alas, my daughter, you've brought me very low." No, dude, you brought yourself low, right? Okay, "You've become the cause of great trouble to me, for I have opened my mouth to the Lord, and I cannot take back my vow." Verse 36, here we go. She said to him, "My father, if you have opened your mouth to the Lord, do to me according to what has gone out of your mouth, now that the Lord has given your vengeance against your enemies, the Ammonites." And she said to her father, "Let this thing be done for me. Grant me 2 months, so that I may go and wander on the mountains and bewail my virginity, my companions and I." 38. "Go," he said, and sent her away for 2 months. This is a confusing story. All right, so she departed, she and her companions, and bewailed her virginity on the mountains. At the end of 2 months, she returned to her father, who did with her according to the vow he had made. She had never slept with the man, so there arose an Israelite custom that for 4 days, okay, now you got to really listen, because I think this is why the story's in here. Okay, I'm going to say that again. You got to really listen, because I think this is why the story's in there. I don't think it's condoning his action. I'm not even entirely sure it actually happened. But I think there's a weird tradition that happens, and they need to explain why it happens. And so they tell the story as right? We remember this word, an etiological, or something like an origin story on why it's here. So here we go. At the end of 2 months, she returned to her father, who did with her according to the vow he had made. She had never slept with the man, so there arose an Israelite custom that for 4 days every year the daughters of Israel would go out to lament the daughters of Jephthah the Gileadite. So why do they, Grandma, why do they go out and do that thing every year? Every, 4 years? Yeah. Why do they do that? What's the whole entire thing behind that? Well, let me tell you the story, honey, about this crazy thing that happened, yada, 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 and here's why. And Judges tells the story. Okay. Let's finish up. 12, 1 through 7. How are we doing on time? We're doing okay. Where's my phone? My goodness. Okay. The men of Ephraim were called to arms. They're going to war. And they crossed to Zaphon and said to Jephthah, "Why did you cross over to fight against the Ammonites and did not call us to go with you?" Like, we would have gone, man. Call all your friends. All right, we will burn your house down over you. It's a logical response. All right, Jephthah said to him, "My people and I were engaged in conflict with the Ammonites who oppressed us severely, but when I called you, you did not deliver me from their hand. When I saw that you would not deliver me, I took my life in my hand and crossed over against the Ammonites, and the Lord gave them into my hand. Why then have you come up to me this day to fight against me?" Right? Come on, let's stop the fighting. Verse 4. Then Jephthah gathered all the men of Gilead and fought with Ephraim, and the men of Gilead defeated Ephraim because they said, "You are fugitives from Ephraim, you Gileadites, in the heart of Ephraim and Manasseh." Verse 5. Then the Gileadites took the fords of the Jordan against the Ephraimites. Whenever one of the fugitives of Ephraim said, "Let me go over," so they're trying to escape right from the battle, the men of Gilead would say to him, "Are you an Ephraimite?" When he said no, they said to him, "Then say Shibboleth." And he said, "Sibboleth," for he could not pronounce it right. Right? So when you get to the Ohio River, right? Say Louisville. Right? Louisville. Kill them. It's like these things have always happened, right? He could not pronounce it right. Then they seized him and killed him at the fords of the Jordan. 42,000 of the Ephraimites fell at that time. Jephthah judged Israel 6 years. Then Jephthah the Gileadite died and was buried in his town in Gilead. All right. Lovely. There's your story. Sleep well. Okay. All right. I don't know, right? Okay, so let's return to some of these questions. We got about 5-ish minutes left. Where is your sense of the divine in this story? What is your understanding of the people involved, both the judge, the leader, and the, what do you call it? Collateral damage? The people in the way?
It makes about as much sense to me as today's world and the geopolitics.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
About as much sense.
Let's have these people go to war with these people, and these people over here can fight, and then we'll go fight over here, and
Cause them to fight each other.
yes,
Take them out.
yes, good. And then we will have this piece of land here.
We're gonna get Greenland.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, all right, you name it, whether it's Greenland or Poland or West Berlin, we can go on and on and on and on and on. It doesn't matter which side of the political spectrum you fall on. Political violence, geopolitical violence, has always been a part of the human situation. And I think I'm reminded that there are always people who will suffer because of the machinations of those who are put in charge.
History is written because of the war.
Yeah, I think so, for a large part of it, because of the conflict. Okay, so what's our understanding? Go ahead.
But it's interesting that back then, the primitive cultures had all these different gods. And so they
Yes.
fought over a belief in a different God than the Lord God.
Yep.
And you look at today, and they don't follow the God. They don't have God. They don't believe
Well,
in
maybe
God.
we do have gods, they just aren't the same kind of God.
Yeah.
They're not called
Baal.
they're called money.
Come on now. Come on now.
And that's what it's other nouns.
Yeah,
Not,
they're,
not, and now we don't believe, so many people in the world, we don't believe God. They believe Darwin did it, and the Big Bang did it.
Sure,
You know,
sure,
God didn't do
sure.
anything. And so we don't fight about other religions, except maybe Allah. We have Islam,
Sure.
Muslim. But you've got probably God.
Yeah.
There is no God.
So I'm glad you said something, because I wrote down in my notes the role of pantheons or gods in ancient warfare. Excuse me. And I think it's an important distinction to remember that there was no division in the ancients' mind. There was no separation of church and state.
right.
Like,
The God was the state.
the God was the state. The state was God. I'm going to say there was no division. That's why when the Philistines win, it's not like, oh, they have better bombers than we do. It's like, no, they win because their God willed it. And okay, you sit here and argue from a military history perspective, is that true or not? It doesn't matter. To the ancients, there's no distinction. So when Babylon falls, it's because their gods have forsaken them, right? When Egypt declines, it's because their pantheon needs strengthened.
Well, the ancients had to have answers, and they didn't have answers to these things. And so they believed it was something beyond themselves, whatever it was, to answer those questions. Now, we found out all the answers. Not all, but most.
We think we did.
Yeah, we got them. We're smart, we don't need God.
That's right. We rotate around it.
That's not good. I don't think God's up there going, this is a good idea. Not totally good, but you think you know all the answers. You smart fellow. And so, and I think we're gonna get smited. And we may get smited, smoked, or whatever. Because God's going, whoa. And look at, in the Bible, all these times, God goes, okay, I'm gonna kick your rear end. If you're gonna do this, it'll take 40 years, 60 years, we'll smite you. And then you're gonna be taken over by somebody else, and then maybe you'll come around and come.
That's the narrative of Judges, right? That people do what they think is right in their own mind, and God says, fine. Like, you want to be that way? Like, he delivers them into the hand of an oppressor, or their own machinations, or their own warfare, and they are subjected to hardship. I would argue it's a hardship of their own making. That it's...
And the hardship of our own making is coming, that's where we are.
I think it's the human story. Okay, so let's pull up from the human story and understand Judges then. Where's the role of the divine in that cycle? My question makes sense?
It makes sense, I just can't make sense of what happened.
Okay.
Well, it just, I mean, God continues to do this over and over again. You know, the Israelites step away. God says, okay, well, let somebody take over. 40, 50, 60, 80, 100 years, the Egyptians can take over, enslave you, and then God steps back in after a while, and then it happens again, and he steps back in, and then he goes.
Now I want to correct something. In my opinion, I want to dance with you on this. I heard you say that God steps back in. Okay, no, right. Yeah, so like, do we understand God as being involved and then withdrawing involvement and saying like, I need to, I fixed it.
He gave us free will, and he lets us do
So,
free will.
so is God present in the story through all the hardship? Okay, we're going.
I mean, does God give us enough rope to hang ourselves?
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
So often, some of these countries, God, and it's not God, but they do what the state tells them to do, period. And if there happens to be a big, strong leader in that state, then
He's almost God.
yes. It's sad to say, but,
Yeah.
look at Iran.
Yeah, you can point to a number of countries where there is a strong man, right?
But God has messengers. Deborah was a
There we go. Come on. There are people who are raised up, prophets, judges. Now let's not conflate, right, the raising up of a leader with the divine themselves. So the divine is still present even when the judge is not raised up. But the person who is raised up, you got a job to do and a calling that's placed on your life, that God is calling you to a time and a place and a purpose. And so you have to act faithfully in the midst of the uncertainty of everything that we've just read. My read. So Deborah or Samson or Jephthah or Ehud, you name these judges, they are divinely appointed. But God is still active in the entire book. I think the author struggles to see where God is at work in the midst of the time when they're handed over to their enemies. As we are today. And I don't start preaching. I'm going to say one more thing, it might take some of you off. But I think we still conflate God and state, just like they did. I don't care what side of the political side you fall on. I think we still think like, if my country's doing good, then God has blessed us. Yeah, that's right. Then we're fine. And if my country's not doing good, then God's favor has been withdrawn. And I think that's not true. I think God is consistent, and it's us who are inconsistent. Okay. Now, other thoughts? You can send me your emails. Do we have prophets today? I think so. I believe so, 100%. And I think when we think of the word prophet, we think of someone who's like, oh, I have a word from God, you know, but I don't think that's what that giftedness means. I think prophets speak truth to power. That's what Samuel did. That's what Nathan does to David. That's what all the prophets did in the Old Testament. You know, some of them are, it doesn't work out well for some of them. You know, some of them are not received well, right? And some retreat into kind of obscurity. Israel kills some of the prophets. Yeah.
For whatever reason, right, when you're saying that, I think it's Charlie Kirk.
Sure. Some people would say he was a prophet.
I thought, okay, here's this kid, this young man, that steps up and says, this is right and this is wrong. Now, whether you agree or don't agree, he says, this is what God means to me, and I believe it, and he's killed. And now, what's going to happen to that? Is that going to, I don't know, but I think of him, and I don't know a lot about him, but, you know, I mean, I think in a way he's directed by God in his way. I don't know if everybody they may not agree with him.
Yeah.
He said, this is the way it is, and I believe this way. And I, you know, so, and I'm trying to think of other people out there that are in that position who have gotten that voice, and partly because he got killed.
Sure.
Yeah, I know who he was. Still that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said nothing controversial. You know, but no, I will say too that I think prophets will be known by their fruit, right? And so ultimately, I'm not sure that prophets are always recognized in their time, you know, and that ultimately the fruit that they bear will determine how prophetic their voice was. And so, you know, you look back at a Jeremiah or an Isaiah or an Ezekiel, right? And you go, yes, these people were prophets. But as soon as like they were there doing their thing, were they recognized as prophets? Maybe. Maybe. Like if CNN was around in that day, you know, and said, hey, Jeremiah, yeah, tell me all about it, you know.
Deborah was a prophetess.
She was. And she's recognized as such.
Recognized, and people thought that of her. And so they said, yep, that's the gal. She knows what's going on, and she, you know,
Let her do her thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Good thoughts, y'all. Great discussion. I hope this has been helpful. Next week, we will meet and we will look at Judges 1 through 3. When the cycle begins, we'll look at the early kind of situation in Judges, and we will encounter that. So I'll offer a word of prayer, and then we will retreat to our abodes for the evening in the neighborhood of Tob. Is that what it is? Tob. Okay, yeah, that's right. I believe it. Yeah. Oh, man. Holy God, we give you thanks for the day that you've given us, for the opportunity to gather in this space and to discuss things and to wrestle with this text and to be informed by your Spirit. So, Lord, give us the ears to hear you and the courage to be okay with maybe not knowing all the answers, but the courage to encounter you nonetheless. So we pray this all in your Son's name. Amen. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. Good to see you. I'll linger if you have questions.